Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football recruiting, my co-host and HappyValleyInsider.com's very own Dylan Callahan-Crawley. Dylan, the college football playoff is getting close. This Saturday, big game, 2 days away. Countdown continues. We're almost there. But before that, we got some other news we got to talk about with this Penn State football team. Right now, I think all of college football, whether it be journalists, media, fans, etc., are all focused on this transfer portal. It has been nuts. It's been crazy. There's been thousands and thousands of names from just about every level of college football entering the portal. Guys are getting extra years because they're playing JUCO and it doesn't count, which is weird. But besides the point, the big news so far, Kyron Hudson, USC transfer wide receiver, commits to Penn State, their first commitment of the transfer portal cycle so far. How did this one kind of come together, and what is Penn State getting in them?
Yeah, so I mean, transfer portal, everything, is kept pretty quiet on recruiting for the most part, especially for programs like Penn State. But yeah, Hudson entered the portal from USC earlier this month, and the Nittany Lions very quietly, became a contender in that one. They got him on campus for a visit over the weekend, and then by Monday evening he was committed to the Nittany Lions. And it's a strong pickup for the Nittany Lions. He's not a number one wide receiver. I went over that on an article on Happy Valley Insider yesterday. He's not a number one wide receiver for Penn State, but he's somebody I think that brings a considerably strong floor to Happy Valley with them. And you combine that with if a guy like Trey Wallace returns for 2025. Penn State has, I think, two really reliable wide receivers there in their unit, and then you obviously still lack that true number one. And we'll see if I don't know if they're going to land a true number one at this point in the portal. And to be quite honest, you look at the portal, I'm not sure how many true number ones there were in the portal this year. Some people could point to, like an Eric Rivers from FIU who committed to Georgia Tech. But at the same time, we saw just last year, Chris Mitchell from FIU, I think that was his name, committed to Notre Dame. And he had, I think, 175 receiving yards this year after posting 1,100 yards a season ago. So, I mean, wide receiver recruiting is a little bit of a crapshoot when it comes to the portal. So I not sure that they're going to land a number one wide receiver at this point in the portal, but I think they landed a really good wide receiver in Hudson that is going to at least raise the floor of the room a little bit, but obviously still lacks that dominant talent.
Yeah, Hudson had a little over 400 yards, a couple touchdowns on the season, one of which Penn State fans probably remember came against them when they that 33-30 overtime thrower out in the Coliseum. Seems like a solid get. Like you said, Harrison Wallace is, I would assume, is probably going to return, so that's another solid receiver. Clifford is up and down. Amari Evans is up and down. How concerned, I know you said they probably won't get a wide receiver one, but how concerned are you the fact that they won't? Because there's really not a guy that can step up. And the one guy they did get last year, Fleming, kind of was, I don't want to say a bust, but I kind of lean towards saying bust, actually.
Yeah, it's, I think, going to Julian quickly, look at the stats, 14 for 176 and a touchdown. Yeah, definitely right. Not a... I think some fans had high expectations, and unrightfully so, of what Fleming was going to be. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I'm surprised that at the end of the day he has, 176 yards in this season for Penn State. I thought there was going to be a little bit more upside there. I mean, hell, that's not that far off Dante Cephas from a year.
About him, yeah.
Sorry, Dante Cephas had more yards a year ago, and Dante Cephas couldn't learn the playbook. So I mean, yeah, I think, like I said for a while, I think Julian's biggest impact is going to be felt in the years to come, and perhaps the culture that he helped instill in the wide receiver room, rather than his impact on the field. But definitely, Penn State's wide receiver recruiting in the portal has not been great since Mitchell Tinsley. And some people, may consider Mitchell Tinsley a little bit of a bust per se as well, because he only had a third of the yards he posted, or 40% of the yards he had at Western Kentucky after that 1,200-yard season or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Tinsley was a really good pickup and played well. Yeah, they haven't been able to find that number one guy in the portal. In terms of this year, like I said, I'm not sure there is a true number one. A lot of people may point to a guy like Zachariah Branch, who recently entered the portal.
Yeah.
But you look at Branch, and now USC's had some issues too, but it's not like Branch has put up monster numbers at USC.
Mm-hmm.
I think people may, now if he ends up at somewhere like an Oregon, perhaps that would be a little scary of what could be the potential there. But I'm not sure he's a true number one wide receiver either, and I think some may be overestimating his impact on a potential program next season as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of concern level about Penn State's wide receiver room heading into next season, I think there's a right to have, some doubts and worries about this room. You've got, like I said, two really good guys in Hudson and Wallace, but after that, it's really a big goal question mark. I mean, who's going to be the next guy to step up? Is it a Tyzier Denmark? Is it Amari? Will Amari Evans find consistency next season?
Mm-hmm.
Liam Clifford, all we heard about in the fall, in the spring, and fall camp was that Liam was having a big, off season and was really taking strides. So far, that's resulted in 17 receptions for 279 yards and a touchdown. Not bad stats, but it seems like he's been hit or miss. So can he find more consistency? I mean, and then you got a bunch of redshirt, sophomore wide receivers and juniors that have little playing time in their career. I think we're going to see a couple departures from this room after the postseason. And then you have 7 redshirt or true freshmen who have little no experience. Tyzier Denmark, one of them. Can one of those guys step up and make an impact next year? It's just a big old question mark, like I said, after Harrison Wallace and Kyron Hudson. And I think Hudson and Wallace are a really good 1-2 combo, but neither one, like we said, is a true number one wide receiver. So how big of an impact can they make? I think for Hudson, you look for him to probably post similar stats to that of what he did with USC, which I think would be fair. Obviously, he has experience against Big Ten defenses and has played at the Power 4 level his entire career, so there should not be any difficulty in competition. And now he's going to be playing with the best quarterback in the country next season with Drew returning. So I think that should bode well for Hudson. I think Wallace, very quietly has had a really good season. Don't think he gets enough credit from Penn State fans, but 39 receptions, 638 yards, 4 touchdowns. If Penn State makes a run to the national championship, he may end the season with, somewhere around 850, 900 yards. So I like the top 2, but really have concerns about Penn State's room beyond that next season, especially now that you're not going to have a Tyler Warren to be your safety valve.
So Kyron Hudson visited. They got him on campus. Eric Rivers and Reggie Virgil both were scheduled to visit and didn't make it to campus, committed elsewhere. Kevin Concepcion, another one who was going to visit campus but never made it. Actually, I shouldn't say. Well, yeah, technically never made it, but started showing interest in other schools. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank this as concern? 10 being the most concerned, 1 being the least concerned about this wide receiver room? I know you kind of just went over it, but I'm just want to get your thoughts real quick.
Yeah. Concern level about the wide receiver going into next year, I'd probably put it a solid 5, 6 right now.
It's lower than I thought.
Because I do feel good about, like I said, I feel good about the top 2. And I think a guy like Tyzier Denmark could have a really good redshirt freshman season. But beyond, I'd say 6.5.
Okay.
Just because the depth in the group is really, really concerning, and it's going to come down to right now development. And while I think the wide receiver room took a slight step up from 2023, there wasn't really a high bar to begin with. So it's going to come down to, can Marcus Higgins develop these guys? Now, obviously, Malachi Fields recently entered the portal from Virginia, which is somebody to watch. If they could add him to the room, that would be huge, a massive pickup, and that would be something that really, knocks that down to a 3 or 4. But Notre Dame is going to be in on that, and a lot of other teams are going to be in on that. So that's, a far from a given just because, a previous relationship there. So we'll see, but definitely, pretty concerned about the overall wide receiver room as things stand right now. Obviously, still got time with the portal this winter, and we'll have the spring window as well. But very few number one wide receivers enter the portal to begin with, and when they do, they're usually demanding big money. And while Penn State has been saving to spend on the portal, there are other programs that still have a little bit more money to throw around. So
Yeah, not great right now. But all right, let's talk some college football playoffs, some positive news. SMU comes to town, big noon kickoff, because every home game for Penn State is a big noon kickoff at this point. But SMU comes to town. It's very high potent offense for SMU. Can I guess let's start with their quarterback. They have a very talented quarterback, but they do turn the ball over quite a bit. 21 times over this season and 5 games of at least 2 turnovers. I feel like Penn State should be able to kind of add to that number.
yeah, it'll be interesting. It is a turnover, prone team in SMU. A lot of that comes back to Kevin Jennings, who is really a fantastic quarterback, but is still a young quarterback and sometimes tries to make too much happen, and by result, throws a couple interceptions. I'm looking at the turnover stats for SMU right now. Yeah, like you said, 21 turnovers. I think it's 9 interceptions, 12 fumbles. So do have ball security issues as well. So yeah, and then you look at Penn State, haven't been a huge turnover, forcing team this season. Through their 13 games, they only have 17 turnovers, including 12 interceptions. So I do like the idea of them potentially creating an interception or two in this game off Jennings. But yeah, I think that's a really intriguing matchup to watch in this one, just because Penn State, compared to seasons past, has not been as chaotic of a defense in the sack category or turnover category. But definitely have an opportunity, I think, this week in SMU and Kevin Jennings to potentially nab a turnover too, which in this game or in any playoff game, because let's get this straight. Well, I think we both agree, and a lot of people are agreeing, Penn State should win this game. This is very much a good SMU team and one that can knock Penn State off if Penn State does not play to their capabilities on Saturday.
Yeah, looking at their offense again, I know we just raised about their talented quarterback in Jennings, 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Also ran for 5 touchdowns and nearly 400 yards. But
Yeah,
their rushing attack between Jennings and Brashard Smith. Brashard Smith, 1,200 yards, 14 tutties this year, 4 receiving on top of that too. That's very talented running back that they're going to have to stop this week.
yeah, Brashard Smith is fantastic, and then Kevin Jennings, yeah, like you said, can do stuff with his legs. Their backup L.J. Johnson Jr. has been solid when given opportunities this year as well. Yeah, this is a dangerous SMU offense that you have to prepare for, and you have to, well, obviously you have to
Of course.
prepare for very carefully, and on Saturday you have to be very careful in how you play. You got to be fundamentally sound. You have to be gap sound. You have to do all the little things right. If you over pursue Kevin Jennings, go for a sack if you're an Abdul Carter, whoever, you can open up an opportunity for him to escape the pocket, whether that's to the left or the right, and either allow a guy to get open or pick up yards with his legs. And Brashard Smith averaging 5.9 yards per carry, and is also averaging 30 receiving yards per game. He's a dynamic weapon, 18 touchdowns this season, which I think leads the ACC. Those two are going to be, Penn State's if Penn State can find a way to slow down Smith in this game, I feel really good about their chances in this one. But this is one of the more dynamic quarterback running back duos that Penn State has faced all season. Maybe the most dynamic duo they faced all season. And James Franklin said so as much on Wednesday evening, calling Kevin Jennings. He was asked about who does he remind Kevin Jennings remind him of, and he said Lamar Jackson. So I mean that's pretty high praise for Jennings. And we know what Lamar could do. We remember what Lamar could do at the college level. So Penn State will have to be very careful with Jennings on Saturday, but also Brashard Smith, as you said, just a fantastic running back.
Yeah, Brett Lashley, head coach, genius offensive mind too.
Yeah.
Has been around the block a time or two. Just looking at their offense, they put up crazy good numbers. Now, kind of going hand in hand with the Penn State offense, could Penn State win in a shootout if it came down to that? I know they've done it against USC this year, so I mean, it's not
I
unheard of.
do think they could win in a shootout. If the offense that showed up 2 weeks ago against Oregon shows up on Saturday, they could absolutely win in a shootout. I don't see this getting into a shootout. I think this one comes down to I believe Penn State has a big advantage in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I don't know if SMU is going to be able to block Penn State's front seven throughout this game.
Sure.
And this is probably the best offensive line that SMU has faced all season as well. And this offensive line has been really great. If this offensive line plays the way they did against Oregon, this will not be a close game. This will be a blowout in favor of Penn State. That's a high bar to hit. The offensive line was nearly perfect against Oregon, especially in the ground game. But yeah, if it gets to a shootout, I think Penn State can win. But I don't think it'll be a shootout, mostly because while SMU is a very good team, I think the ACC is rather weak this year, and a lot of those numbers are inflated for the Mustangs this year. And this is, I think, by far the best team that they will have faced this season.
I mean, their two losses are against a BYU team earlier in the year, 18-15, which, yuck, ugly game there. And a loss to Clemson in the ACC championship. On top of that, Nevada played them pretty tough early on. They played a down ACC schedule, like you mentioned. Texas Christian was their other out of conference, and they're okay this year, I guess. So I mean, you are right. They definitely had a weaker schedule. Now, can Penn State get things going on offense and get things clicking? I know they had it in the most recent game, obviously. Yeah. They had things going pretty well, but it wasn't enough to upset Oregon. Can they keep it all together for this game against an SMU team? And honestly, can this wide receiver core, I know we just complained about it a little bit, but can they kind of start to get things get open and start to do some things on that front?
I think they can, because you go back to that Oregon game, and the wide receivers were finding ways in parts of that game to get open. And the cornerback unit for SMU is the weakness on this defense. It's a really good defense, but their weakness is the passing attack. They're one of the better teams against the run, which is going to create an interesting matchup for Penn State this weekend. But their secondary is their weakness. Their safeties are pretty good, but their corners are their weakest point. So I do think the wide receiver unit can have success. Tyler Warren is going to have success. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but Red Lashley said we can't stop him.
No one can, to be fair.
No one can. I do think it's kind of stupid to come out and say, yeah, we're not going to stop him. But
you just got to slow him down, at least.
Yeah.
Try to, at least.
But I think Penn State's going to be able to have offensive success against SMU. We've seen Penn State go up against multiple good secondaries all season. And at the end of the day, they continue to put up passing yards, not just because of the wide receiver unit, but because they have who I think is the most talented quarterback in the college football playoffs in Drew. Drew still has ways to go in his development. That's why he's coming back next season. But he has shown the ability at times this season to throw guys open, to place balls perfectly where only his receivers can get it. He has managed the pocket tremendously well this year. Drew does all the little things right that allows his wide receiver room to maximize what ability they do have to get open. So I do think Penn State is going to have offensive success this week. Will they have as much as they did against Oregon? I'm not sure. I think, depending on the weather, that could play a factor in it. I expect Penn State to come out of this game. If I was Penn State, at least, I'd come out of this game, see if I can establish that run game early, and if you can, I would just look to bully SMU in this game, not try to be too special. And I think Penn State is going to have that opportunity to bully SMU in this game. Like I said, I think they're better in the trenches on both sides. But if Penn State can get the run game going early, that's going to open up a lot of the passing game. And I think there's a chance to have a lot of success on Saturday.
Yeah, 27 degrees. I was going to ask about the weather. 27 degrees is the prediction right now from AccuWeather. 65% chance of a snow shower. It's going to feel like 13 degrees, it says. So this is going to be an interesting thing because coming up from SMU, that Texas weather is not not like it is up here. And I think we've said this multiple times over the past couple weeks. These teams that are coming from the South to play in the North this year for the college football playoff, I don't think they're ready for it. Like there's no way to prepare yourself for it at all. Like it's just a different type of football. Like we grew up in this football. This is football weather for us. Those guys grew up in year round. They start putting on hoodies when it's fucking like 70 degrees, and they're like, yeah, it's cold. Like, like I don't think they're ready for 13-degree weather.
Yeah, no, I do think the weather factor has been a little bit
Think so? I feel like
over.
plays a lot.
No, I think it plays a lot. I think it's a little bit overplayed. I mean, it does not get 13 degrees cold in Dallas a lot. But I mean the other week, it was like in the 30s down there. So
Okay.
it's not like they're
That's
not
more than I thought.
totally, they're not. It's not like they don't know the cold at all. They know the cold now. How experienced are they in playing the cold? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how cold it was in Charlotte for the ACC championship.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the roster is from the South. So yeah, is the weather going to be a factor? I think early on it could be a factor, but I think, if you're a good football team, you find a way to get past the cold. But yeah, I think early on it could serve as an advantage for Penn State. I just do think it has been perhaps so far a little bit overplayed.
Yeah. I can agree to that. I'm always big on the weather being a factor, though, especially if it's going to snow. 60% chance. Flurries, sorry. Not like full blown snow, but we saw the field, earlier this week? It was covered in snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the fans, at least, at the very least, are going to be miserable coming up from Dallas to this. But yeah, that's anything else, really, before we go to predictions? I was going to go right
Um,
into it.
just a couple observations stat wise here
Hmm.
on SMU. Kevin Jennings does throw the ball deep quite a bit. 48 attempts this year, about 17% of his all attempts. However, just 33.3% completion percentage, so that'll be something to watch. Uh, a majority of his passes come either behind line of scrimmage or in the short game. He does like to go intermediate quite a bit. Uh,
And he likes to spread it out too. All his receivers are like
yeah,
500 yards, 400 yards, 300 yards,
yeah.
300 yards. Like,
Doesn't despite being despite the turnovers, he doesn't throw a ton of turnover-worthy passes
mhm.
as well. That was one thing I noticed. But does have a big-time arm, so Penn State will have to be, uh, careful about that with the pass attack of SMU. The Ponies do have an explosive offense. I think they're top five when it comes to most plays at 20 plus yards in the country this season. Let me double check that one. Number nine, sorry, 72 this season. Uh, Penn State has 65 for comparison. So a little bit more explosive than Penn State. Their defense is really damn good, like I said. One of the best against the run this season in college football, top 10 in that category, allowing here's the number here, 93.4 yards per game, 2.7 yards per carry, but they're allowing 232.7 passing yards per game. And you look at their game logs, what they've done against some previous opponents. Allowed 415 passing yards to TCU, 350 to Pittsburgh, 329 to Louisville, 295 to Duke, 262 to Clemson last week. Yeah, they can be beat through the air quite a bit. On the ground, they have been beat at times. Boston College ran for 180, Nevada ran for 140, BYU ran for 134. But the yards per carry number, always important. Only have allowed over four once this season, so we'll see how that goes for Penn State. But they can be ran on a little bit, but they can absolutely be thrown on, which is why I think it could be a big day for Drew and the pass and the wide receivers, Tyler Warren, on Saturday, which will be interesting with the colder weather. But yeah, that's really my going back to the offense quickly. Love to spread the ball around. If you look at their receivers, 7 receivers with 20 plus receptions, 10 receivers with multiple receivers, running backs, tight ends with double-digit receptions this season, and 8 different receivers have caught a touchdown this season. 11 different guys averaging over 10 yards per reception as well. So, I mean, this can be a very explosive passing attack for the Mustangs. But I think that obviously plays a little bit well into what Penn State's defense does well with the secondary. Obviously, had a rough day against Oregon, but I don't think SMU has the playmakers on the outside, nor do they have a Tez Johnson on the outside that can change the game like he did in the Big Ten Championship. Also, not playing indoors is on turf will be a major difference in this one as well.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So let's get to it. Penn State is favored by 8.5. That hasn't changed at all, and it went from 53.5 or 52.5 to 53.5. What are you kind of thinking here, and how's this one going to end up?
Yeah, I'm taking Penn State. When this game came out, I was thinking Penn State 30, 4-17-ish. I've come a little bit down, a little bit on the margin of victory since the matchup was announced, and then the last day or so have slightly leaned back towards a heavier one. So I'm going to go Penn State 31, SMU 21.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I keep going back and forth with this one. I feel like there's a potential chance for Penn State to just blow this one open and win by we're talking 15 plus. There's a chance. I don't think it happens. But I mean,
a chance I was around that with my 34-17 because I was feeling 34-17 when this first was announced. Because like I said, I think SMU is a good team, but I don't think the ACC is particularly good. I don't think Clemson is particularly good.
They shouldn't be in the playoff.
Right. All right. I don't think ACC or Clemson is particularly good, so I think the numbers are inflated, and I think Penn State's much better in the trenches than SMU, which again leads me to believe that Penn State can win this one going away. And if Penn State can establish the run game, I think even more chance. Now that 34-17, was coming off the Big Ten championship game where we saw Penn State's offense put up 500 yards on Oregon and be the better offense for the majority of that game.
Yeah.
Now, no excuses, but if it wasn't for Tez Johnson, Penn State probably wins that game. But that's not the case. Tez Johnson was on the other side of the field, and Tez Johnson dominated Penn State's secondary. But like I said, SMU doesn't have that guy, and I think Penn State is going to be able to pick up where they left off last weekend or 2 weeks ago. Maybe not to the same level because I do think playing indoors on the turf had a lot to do with that, but I think they're going to have success on Saturday. So yeah, I'm going to go 31-21 here.
I'm going to be close with you. I'm going to say 31-17, just because I want to make that gap a little bit more, because I'm just not convinced that they can do much on this offense. I think that Penn State's going to cause havoc in the backfield. They're going to get to Jennings. They're going to make him throw some erratic stuff. Just get them uncomfortable, basically. And then if you could stop that run game, all bets are off. You could really open this thing up. And on top of it, if you look in last week, they only had about a week, or not even a week, to prepare for Oregon. This time you get a couple weeks. So now I think Tom Allen, James Franklin, Andy Kolznicki getting all that time, that extra time, I think that this thing's really going to open up. I think that they're going to show that they are ready to make this run in the college football playoff. And I think we'll be talking next week about Penn State heading to Phoenix versus Boise.
Yeah, I think there's a really good chance that we are talking about Penn State heading to the Fiesta Bowl for a matchup with Boise State, and that's another game where I feel Penn State has a really good chance of winning if they do indeed make it there. And then you're talking about one win away from potentially competing for a national championship, and I think there's reasons to be optimistic if Penn State can make that semifinal game as well. Obviously, getting ahead of ourselves, a long ways to go there, but I definitely feel I felt good about Penn State's path for a while now, as I said, and I'm not changing that tune now. So we'll see if they can get step one done here on Saturday against SMU.
Listen, we can look ahead. Players in the team can't, but we could do that.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for our bowl preview. Christmas next week. Got a quick one for you. If you're Penn State and you could ask for anything under the tree, or you're a Penn State fan, whatever you want to call it, and you could ask for anything under your tree, what is the perfect present for Penn State fans next Wednesday? Yeah, Christmas is Wednesday, I think.
So for the Penn State program?
Yeah, let's say the Penn State program. If there's like, hey, one little wish list thing that you have on your Christmas list right now, and you're like, hey Santa, I need
everybody's
this.
Everybody's gonna say a wide receiver, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm gonna say deny Dennis Sutton returning for 2025.
Ooh.
You know, you're already losing Abdul Carter. You're already gonna be losing quite a bit on that defense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lose both Abdul Carter and deny Dennis Sutton, that makes defensive end a huge question mark.
Yes.
Going into next season. There's potential in that room, but it's a huge question mark if you lose both. And I think Deny Dennis Sutton has flashed a lot this season. And I think with a big 2025 season, he could vault himself into being a first-round pick, when right now he's probably a day 2 pick, maybe. Because he's going to, if he goes pro, he'll test really well, but it's kind of like the Odafe Owe situation coming out of Penn State.
Actually, yeah.
A lot of skill, a lot of all the physical tools are there. Just doesn't have the production necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with the big 2025, he could become a first round pick. So I'm going to go deny Dennis Sutton return in 2025.
Yeah, it's a really good comparison. I think a lot of guys like that have that first round potential now. Like you saw it with Drew. I think these guys are going to return for the sole fact that they can make not maybe as much, but damn near close as much, if not more in some cases.
Yeah.
Than they would playing in a rookie contract. So
yeah, and we didn't even get to mention that, which I got some on that quickly. Just but
go
what would you put under the tree if you're Santa delivering a present to Penn State?
I have this long hatred. Not hatred, really. I shouldn't say that. But new wide receivers coach. I don't know if I trust Higgins in terms of developing guys and recruiting. Yes, they're all 3 stars in this high school recruiting class. Is Lyric Samuel underrated? Probably a little bit. Is Matthew Outen a little underrated? Yeah, a little bit. But I need someone that can go out there and get me consistent 4 stars. We saw what they brought in promoted Deion Barnes, and look how much he's been recruiting that defensive line room. He's gotten every 4-star they basically wanted over the past 2 years. Now he's probably going to do it in the portal again. On top of it, I need a receivers coach that can. I hate to say receivers coach, but if you can't get me a wide receiver 1 this offseason, especially the guy you recruited to Virginia in Malachi Fields, I need someone else that can get the job done. I think there's a lot of names out there. I think there's a lot of names even on this coaching staff that could probably do the job. But I think right now I'd probably say my home run grand slam would be hey, find me a new wide receivers coach that can recruit. But in reality, I'd probably settle for just a wide receiver 1 this offseason and be happy.
Yeah, I think wide receiver recruiting needs to. I mean, they're off to a solid start in 2026.
That's true.
Because Guilford is really good.
I love Rogers. I think he's
Rogers. I love our national guys. I still think we have Rogers very underrated on Rivals.
100%.
And I will be stumping for him over the future. But we are the first site to be high on Guilford so far. So we'll take that trade for now, but definitely going to try to get Rogers into that 4-star mix in the future. I'm guessing there's some questions about the talent he's facing, but
yeah, it's not great considering Delaware.
But the film is elite and the skill set is elite. So 2026 is off to a good start. But yeah, 2025, 2024, I think were solid classes of wide receiver, but not great classes.
I just need more, I feel like.
Yeah, it feels like they've been in the conversation for a lot of really good wide receivers, but can't get it past the finish line. That needs to begin to change going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think 2026, they kind of, got ahead of the 8 ball, and just kind of hit these guys hard early on to get them to commit early,
Yep.
and that's good start. Now go out and close this wide receiver class in 2026 with two, high end guys, whether that's one guy I think would be great for Penn State to add, who I think is also a little bit underrated by rivals, is Messiah Hampton out of New York.
God.
I think that would be a fantastic pickup. Go land a guy like Messiah Hampton and go land another 4-star prospect, because there's plenty of 4-star wide receivers currently interested in Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
A trio from Virginia. Go ahead. Well, they got 3 wide receivers right now.
Yeah,
and maybe 4.
Keys, Rogers, and
could have a 4th coming at some point in the future if a certain in-state receiver chooses to announce at some point. But obviously only so much room. So I think if you could add Coke and then add whether a Messiah Hampton or another high 4-star wide receiver, then that's a really good class. But also I think 2025 is a make or break season for Marcus Higgins.
Now listen, hear me out. Conspiracy theory me. I don't have tinfoil on me, but I would have made a tinfoil hat if I did. Ohio State loses Saturday. Ryan Day gets fired. You get Quincy Porter. I don't even care, Marquise. You get an extension at this point. Like,
yeah. If I'll be really interested to see what happens if Ohio State loses. If Ohio State loses on Saturday. I have a friend who's a Ohio State fan, and he picks Tennessee to win because he thinks Ryan Day is
that's
terrible, and he thinks the team has quit on Ryan Day.
I mean, born on third base.
Right. I think I don't know if Ryan Day gets fired, but I think if Ryan Day and Ohio State loses in the first round, things could get really interesting. I'm not sure Ohio State would fire Ryan Day, but his seat's going to be red hot if they lose.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do if they lose, because I feel like my brain says like that'd be dumb, man. Why would you fire him? But at the same time, those fans are fucking nuts. Like they will pay. They'll take their money back.
You cannot fire a coach who has like 10 losses in 4 or 5 seasons.
I know, but
he can walk away from the job. Which does he take an NFL job this season?
There is one right around the corner that is open already.
So those are the. If he leaves, I think it's going to be by his own volition. I can't see them firing him, because if you fire a coach who's 8 losses or whatever it is in 4 or 5 seasons, you're going to be nobody's going to want to take that job. It's the same argument with James Franklin and Penn State. Every time Penn State fans bring up fire James Franklin after a Ohio State loss. Penn State has lost 11 games the last 4 seasons total. I mean, how you can't fire a coach who has had that level of success and at Penn State almost unprecedented success for compared to the last 2-3 decades, and fire them and then expect every coach to line up at your door wanting to take the job.
Yeah, my thing with them is it's just, I'm getting kind of off topic now, but it's just weird because like it seems like the top name would be Mike Vrabel, and it's like, isn't that just like the same person just defensively? Like,
that's the other problem. There's like, if you're firing Ryan Day, you might as well just shoot everything you have at Nick Saban and hope for the best, because there's
pray.
While I think Ryan Day is overrated in terms of coaching rankings, he's still one of the top 10 coaches in the country, and it's very hard to replace a top 10 coach in the country. I mean, there's very little upgrading. So.
Very weird, but conspiracy theory. Quincy Porter, Penn State, Saturday. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe, never know. But that's all we got for today. Anything else really before we sign off? We did predictions. We did a little Christmas thing.
Drew come back next. Drew come back next year. Huge for Penn State. Obviously, I think he has he's entering the season as the #1 quarterback in the country. Heisman contender. Heisman odds released by Bet Online today. He is entering the season at number 4 at plus 900, behind Arch, Garrett Nussmeier, John Mateer, the new Oklahoma quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, I like his chances there outside of maybe Art. I mean, there's no runaway Heisman guy right now going into next season, guy that's an obvious pick. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, major for Penn State, has a chance to be the number 1 pick in 2026 now.
For anyone curious, your boy does have a Heisman vote. Tyler Warren, I put 3rd, I will say. I couldn't do it over Travis Hunter, number 1, and then Genty had to be number 2. That was a tougher one for me, but then I had to put Warren 3rd. Someone put Warren 1st, though, which I was a little shocked by. I don't know if that came out who it was or not, but I think he rightfully deserved to be in New York City at the very least. I'm a little disappointed that they did not put him out there, and to all the bozos on Twitter saying Harold Fannon's better, stop. Like, just no. Different level of football. But that's really it. For me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.